Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is 1 p.m. here in New Vienna, Iowa. That means it's time for another live stream. Today is Monday, July 19th, 2019, right? Wow. 19th, 2021. Hopefully you guys are having a fantastic day. Because it is a Monday today, we're going to do Monday Mukbang. And today what I have is egg pancakes. I'm not sure if you guys have seen anything like this before. I had not really seen it until I came back to, it's a thing that I've only eaten in Iowa. But essentially, it seems to be basically like a crepe. Very similar. I'm having a hard time figuring out what the difference between a crepe recipe is and what's known around here as an egg pancake. But I think the way they eat it here is probably also a little bit different as well. So I thought we'd go over that today, kind of exploring all the wonderful things that my mother-in-law tends to make whenever we come back. It is a favorite amongst not only the grandkids, but also the adults as well. So that's what we'll be doing today. I just showed it to you. That's not how it's done. And I'll go over the traditional preparation for it in just a minute. But first, I do want to say hi to everyone listening on the podcast version, on the audio only. Hopefully you guys are having a good run out there today as you're listening. And everyone watching this on YouTube after the fact, but not live, welcome to you guys as well. Feel free to interact in the comments, even though the live chat won't be available to you anymore. All right, let's see who we got here in the chat right now. We've got Ty Matt says howdy. And Martha's here and says, I'm wondering who would say hi first. And I guess no one wanted to say hi today because it was a standoff between Ty Matt and Martha playing a little bit of chicken. All right. Martha says she has, for Monday Mukbang, a Sweet Earth Veggie Lovers Pizza. It's about to come out of the oven for the mukbang. That sounds nice. I'm kind of envious of that. That sounds really good too. I could always go for pizza. That's definitely something I can enjoy. You know, we had for dinner yesterday. One of my nieces is going back to college soon. And so it was not like a going away party, but she had made a request that grandma have like a little bit of a cookout at grandma's house on the deck. And so some of that niece's favorites were had for dinner. And one of the things she likes the most is, I'm not talking about pizza, but it is a food segue. She likes, my mother-in-law makes like these tinfoil packets of like kind of like home fried potatoes, but just potatoes with cheese and onions in it. Particularly tasty. She cooks them on the grill. We also had some sweet corn, which was the first sweet corn that I've had for this year. So that was also super tasty to have for dinner yesterday. So it was a really nice dinner, lots of family around. There's really aunts, uncles, cousins. It was just really nice family stuff. Awesome. All right. Let's see who else. We got Bert Leguess here. Says hi all. And let's see. Bert says he's going to make today a chicken curry sandwich. Oh, that sounds good. You know what's one of the things that like I occasionally miss about being, mostly vegetarian is like, chicken. I feel like chicken sandwiches were getting fancy right around when I stopped eating a lot of meat. And so like curry chicken sandwiches, I like sandwiches. And then curry chicken sandwiches or like chicken with like either nuts or dried fruit, like those kinds of sandwiches. I miss those from time to time. Sounds delicious. Awesome. All right. Brian Nee says, hi all. Hope everyone had a good weekend. I'll be lurking while working today. We had like a super fun weekend at our here at Grandma's house. So Saturday we did paddle boats, which was super fun. I haven't ridden in a paddle boat, like the kind where, you sit back and you pedal with your feet. We went to Backbone State Park and there's paddle boats there for rent. And so me and my daughter got in one, the baby and my wife got in another, and grandma and grandpa got in a third. So we just tooled around the lake for a little bit, which was super nice. And then afterwards we went on a hike. Grandpa had his new hiking pack. He has a new pack where he keeps his water and some other supplies in. And then he had new trekking poles that he wanted to test out. So we got out there for a nice hike as well. And then when we got back, we went to the pool. So it was like a super active day. And then yesterday, we took the kids for a bike ride. We borrowed Grandpa's truck so we could put all the bikes and the bike trailer. I have a kiddie trailer thing that I could pull behind my bike. So we went on the Heritage Trail. We got on the bikes for a while and then did some more swimming all day. So just a lot of summer fun, just like a lot of outdoor activities and stuff, and just a really good family day. Hopefully you guys had an opportunity this week to get outside and run, because I also did a lot of running, but also to spend some time with some of your favorite people too. All right. Vincent Venera says, how goes it? What's going on, Vincent? And let's get to one more. Sorry, I think my chat just jumped. And then we'll get to one more, and then we'll start diving into this egg pancake. Let's see. We got Spence Ohms says, I'm trying to be a better adult and read more books. Just got done with Living with a Seal. Any other must-read running books? I mean, I'm assuming if you read, I'm not familiar with Living with a Seal, but I'm assuming if you're interested in that, you'd probably be interested in David Goggins' book already. I'm guessing you've probably already read that one. But I would say that is definitely a good one to read. Another one that I liked is, which is inspiring and motivating, but in a different way, is Meb Keflezighi's book. Not the 26.2 marathons one, his first one. The audiobook is, unfortunately, I don't think any of his books are narrated by him, which I think is a shame, because I'd rather hear it in his own voice. But yeah, I felt like that was another good one too. All right, let's get into this egg pancake. So the way that egg pancakes work is, so it's a very thin pancake, right? But I think that the batter doesn't have any baking powder, baking soda. I don't think that any of that leavening agent is in there, which would be in a pancake. And I think that there's more egg to like milk and flour. So I think that ratio is a little bit different, and it comes out real thin. Again, very much like a crepe. And then you're supposed to eat, this one's cool, but you're supposed to eat them when they're real hot, right out of the griddle or the pan, and then get some extra butter on it, and then it melts in. And then you're supposed to add some cinnamon. Got some cinnamon here. It's grandma's house, so we got grandma size cinnamon, triple sized, and then some sugar. So I'm gonna put some sugar on this, just sprinkle it on top, which always seems like a very strange way of eating food, but it works and it's really good. So we'll do that, and then we'll get a little bit of the cinnamon on here as well. It's really easy to accidentally open the wrong side of the cinnamon thing and put too much cinnamon on there. So that makes it like spicy and like gum rather than like a breakfast treat. And then you roll it up into like these little kind of like taquitos or like cigar type shapes. And then you slice them into little rings. And that's how I make them for my kids, so that they have little kind of almost like miniature like cinnamon rolls, rings in there, and then eat them this way. And then, so it's a pancake, but it's got butter, cinnamon, and sugar, really tasty, but no syrup. So you don't really eat syrup with the egg pancake. It's always really good. The kids always love it. I mean, there's pure sugar right on top. So, I mean, how can it not be good? And butter on top. So it's gotta be good. Yeah. Tom Israel says, cooking with Co. Yeah. I mean, I would love for Monday Mukbang to have like a big countertop with like a little camp stove on top and like actually cook stuff with you guys. Someday. One day we'll get that figured out. We'll get that figured out. Jeff Runner says, what's going on? Paul says, sounds like a crepe. I'm pretty sure it is a crepe. And I don't know if there's at some point there was some sort of like Francophobia around here that made it so like no one ever called it a crepe. And so they just called it egg pancakes. I'm not sure what the difference would be. Ethnically, a lot of the people in this region come from English and German origin. That's very predominant in the area. So I can't figure out what any kind of connection would be, but it also could be convergent evolution, culinary evolution, where the French invented crepes, and then over here where there's farms, people were like, well, we got all these eggs, let's figure out something to do with them, and we got all this wheat, and then maybe they also came up with something that looks like crepes too. But either way, it's delicious. That's the traditional way to eat them. How I tend to eat them is I like to put a nut butter inside instead of the butter, sugar, and cinnamon. And then I'll basically have like, like an almond butter pancake. Sometimes my father-in-law, when he's feeling a little bit feisty, he'll just take some breakfast sausage and roll that right into it too. So he's having like a little like breakfast burrito. So I think that's pretty awesome. Or it's basically kind of like a breakfast corn dog, I guess. I mean, maybe corn dog is not the right word, but you get the idea. It's like a pig in a blanket, but a breakfast version of it. So there's some creativity allowed with the dish, but I'd just like to put a nut butter inside. All right. Yeah, right. He says we got to get you a multi-camera setup for these. I know. Do I need to get like an overhead? Do you guys watch the Korean vegan? She's mainly on TikTok, but I think she also puts her stuff on Instagram as well. She has a multi-camera setup for hers, but I think she has a couple of Canon C50s. Is that what they're called? She has a couple of Canon cameras, one like in front, one overhead, and then one at an oblique angle. And when she puts them together, you kind of like, it's like a cooking show. It's really well produced. But I see her running along the lakefront from time to time. I've never quite said hi to her. I don't know if she would recognize me or not. We have interacted a little bit on Twitter, but she interacts with so many people. But she has a really great multi-camera setup. But maybe I can get one of those too. You know, I'm thinking about if we get to a point where we're a little bit more stable location-wise, you know, we're jumping around where we are here, Chicago, you know, where I would like to get a multicam live switcher so I can do more stuff like this, you know, because it's fun. I think it all adds to kind of the experience, I think. Shannon says, co-fan, memories of last summer when you were on your air fryer kick. Is it in Iowa? The air fryer, I just brought the air fryer back. Here's the thing. I just brought the air fryer back to Chicago, and I was thinking, you know what? Because I wanted to get it out of my mother-in-law's house. Like, I just didn't want to like we have a lot of stuff here taking up space, and I feel bad about it. And so I took it back on I forget when, but we've come back periodically to just kind of collect more things and take them back home. And then I just found out today, or like 2 days ago, that my niece just bought an air fryer for her college dorm. And then also my nephew, who's a couple of years younger than her, they were like fighting over it for some reason. I don't know. But the long story short is, one of my nephews who spends a lot of time playing video games in the basement really wants an air fryer. So I'm like, I just brought that thing 200 miles away from here. But I think I'm going to bring it back and put it in the basement for him, so he can further never come out of the basement. But I feel like he'd put it to a lot better use than I would. And our place in Chicago, there's just not a lot of space for it. I was planning on donating it to charity, like giving it to Goodwill, but I think I'll bring it back and give it to my nephew. Bert says, we have at least 10 variants of this kind of crepe in our restaurants. Restaurants typically start service crepe after 3 p.m. and before dinner. Oh, that sounds nice. There is a place in our neighborhood. One of my wife and my favorite restaurants in the neighborhood is called La Creperie. Buckwheat crepes of the, I think the more traditional French style, both savory and sweet. One of the most delicious ones they make is a coq au vin crepe, which is just absolutely decadent and delicious. I haven't had that in several years, but it is really good. So I've been a fan of the crepe for a long time. Oh, Martha says, instead of an overhead cam, you can get an angled overhead mirror like in cooking classes. There we go. That might be, I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like that takes more space. The overhead cam might actually be easier for me to set up. But in either event, I would need 2 cameras and the ability to switch between them. And I don't think that's too hard to do. I would need a couple more pieces of equipment. And then it's not really something I'd want to set up and take down often. So that's the main thing about it. Ozenfant says they're Palatschinke in, I'm sure I said that wrong, Palatschinke in Austrian German. They aren't as thin as crepes though, which I prefer. Yeah, see, I think I like the thinness of the crepe because then it doesn't get as doughy. I know people like big, thick, puffy pancakes, but for me, whenever I have like a big, thick, puffy pancake, I just feel like there's a lot of opportunities for food to get soggy. So when I eat pancakes, I almost never pour syrup on top of the pancake. I always pour it, if I have a ramekin on the side, that's even better, but I always pour it like on the side of the dish, and then I dip my pancake into the syrup. So that way the pancake always stays not soggy. So the nice thing about the egg pancakes is that they don't get soggy because they're so thin. I love learning about all the different breakfast breads that you guys have. Amazing. He says it's palachinka in Czech. Interesting. Awesome. Yeah, Rob Shooter says, I got to get a switcher. Yeah, I know. I need to get one. I have some at work that we're not using, so I probably can grab some of those. My only thing is, I think that the switch time takes a little bit for it to do the HDMI handshake. So you have to kind of get like a live switcher system, and that, just, it starts to create a lot of problems, or potential problems, a lot of headaches. Just got to make sure everything works together. And then again, just the setup. It's not something that I really want to be setting up and taking down, so I need space. So that's a bigger thing. Bram Van Diemen says, a couple of weeks ago, I had Dutch pancakes with sardines and lemon. Heaven. That does not sound tasty to me, but I think that's because in the US we have such a strange relationship with fish, I think. But I don't know. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around a Dutch pancake, sardines and lemon. But then again, it's like a breaded fish, right? I'm not sure. Maybe. All right. Nicholas Semple has a running question. Says, what shoes from the last 5 years still hold up against the latest releases? I would say probably the Peg 36 is a good one. Peg Turbo too. It definitely is one that holds up. I would say the Terra Kiger 5 is the last Terra Kiger that I ran in. Those definitely hold up. I would say the New Balance Beacons definitely hold up. My running buddy still has a bunch of them. He just bought a whole bunch at once. And he slowly, once he's done using one, he just goes into his closet and gets the next one off the shelf. And then I would say the older Triumphs, the 1080 from the 1080 version 10 is a good one. I'd say some of the older Clifton. Maybe, I don't know. The Clifton 6 was good. I don't think I tried the Clifton 5. So, but I don't think the Cliftons have changed dramatically. But I think each year they have gotten a little better. But if you're looking for some older ones, that's one to get. I'd say the Vaporfly 4% definitely holds up still. I wish they still made those kind of. I probably wouldn't buy one now, but I don't think it would be a bad idea if they still made those. Yeah, those are the ones that are jumping out at me. Kinvaras. I mean, the Kinvaras changed a lot over the last couple of years too. So I think it would depend on kind of what you want out of your Kinvara. All right, Andrew Bostic says, finally found a shoe that works for me, and that is the Air Zoom Tempo. Feels like an Alphafly with Vaporfly hints. Went on a 6-mile run yesterday. I feel like I haven't run in days. Nice. I'm glad that worked out for you, Andrew. Good find. Way to go. All right. Bert says, crepes, or pancakes as we call them, are a standard meal at children's birthday parties at 4 p.m. Really? Kids always end up in an eating contest eating the most. 10 is average? I mean, my kids usually have 4 or 5 of these, which I always feel like, wow. So those other times when I was asking you to eat your vegetables and you said you were way too full, you were totally lying. That's kind of the takeaway. I haven't, but wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I think maybe that's another mukbang exploration we could do is different kids' foods from different parts of the world. So apparently my parents were telling me the other day that all the Korean food that I like is actually Chinese food. And most of it is the stuff that kids like. So when I go to a Korean restaurant, I'm like, can I have ttangseok, which is chicken, and or it could be beef, which I don't really eat anymore, but that used to be one of my favorite foods. Is actually Korean Chinese food. And jjajangmyeon is also another one, which is a black bean paste noodle without a broth in it. It's kind of basically like a spaghetti, but an Asian spaghetti. Those are kind of my things that I want to eat when I go to a Korean restaurant, and those are not really Korean food, and it's usually stuff that kids eat. I found that out not that long ago. So that could be an interesting one. It'd be if you went to a fancy restaurant where can I have macaroni and cheese and tater tots? that's the people be like, you want to order from the kids menu? Is that what's going on here? All right, 23 millimeter Roadie says, hi, have you run ultra on trail ultras? Some do. Amazing, given I think this must be tough on calves. It must take a lot of training them to go that distance. I have not done an ultra distance in an ultra or in any zero drop shoe before. I'm trying to think. I mean, I've done, I think the longest run that I've done in an ultra might be like 15 miles. I have to go see. In the Lone Peak 5s, I think the longest I've taken them out is like 12 miles. I think I've gone longer in the Superior, but I'm not positive on that. I have to double check. I think that the zero drop makes less of a difference in trails than it does on road because you're getting more variation in terms of what your foot is landing on. And so like if the ground is at a 6% grade, the heel drop, you know, the relative heel drop changes. So like, I think it'd be fine to go an ultra distance in an ultra, but I think that changes in heel drop affect me less than the average person. All right. Not surprised says, do you think using fins is a good way to practice breathing for freestyle swimming? That's a good question. I'm not a really good person to answer that. I bought some fins and I feel like they don't really, I'm not sure if I'm not using them correctly, but I feel like they don't teach me much. You know what I mean? When I try to do, like today's swimming was like 400 or 500 meters of swimming with a pull buoy, which I feel like the pull buoy helps me a lot. It keeps my legs up, but also isolates the arm movements of the freestyle stroke. And then I did a bunch of drills with a snorkel and a kickboard, or just the snorkel and doing kicking drills. So sometimes with the kickboard, holding the kickboard in front of me and keeping my face in the water, using the snorkel and kicking, or just keeping my arms in front of me, trying to extend them as far as I can and kicking that way to work on my kick. Every time but like when I think about the fins, I suppose the way that they could help is if you're doing that. Have you seen that where people like swim on their side and then they're reaching out forward, they have one arm at their side and they reach over to breathe and then come back in? I think if the fins help you stay buoyant enough to not sink doing that, then I think that is a way to help practice your breathing. But I don't know. I can't do that drill. I just end up flailing in the water because it feels too uncomfortable for me. So I'm not there yet. So I'm not sure. Probably, but I'm not a good person to ask. I'm not experienced enough to really answer that yet. Andrew wants to know, do you think the Alpha Fly would do well in the 5 to 10K distance, or do you think the Vapor Fly is better? I mean, I would prefer a Next Percent for 5K to 10K, but the Ingebrigtsens did set their country, I always forget what country they're from, their country's 5K record in Alpha Flies. Lots of people love the Alpha Fly, even for short distances too. So I think, you know, I would generally say Next Percent is better than the Alpha Fly, but I wouldn't say like, oh man, you bought the Alpha Fly, too bad, you're gonna have to buy a pair of Next Percents now. I would never say that. All right, let's see. Jason Dahl says, hi everyone. Long run yesterday had to be canceled by some phantom hip pain. Oh no. He said, it's all gone today, so I'm gonna try running 14 miles after work. Should be interesting to say the least. Well, hopefully it was phantom hip pain and hopefully it doesn't come back. Good luck to you. But I'm glad that you're feeling better so far today. Good enough to give a 14-mile run a try. Jep Goji says, so your daughter has already established that you're the #1 jogger. So how does that apply to swimming? Are you a #1 full runner? Both of my daughters, when they see me in the pool, they're like, Daddy, you have a lot of work to do. You need to work on your back float first. So they're always trying to bring me back to basics. So usually when we go to the pool, I'm sure it must be interesting to people to see us, because my daughter wears floaties. They kind of the new floaties. They have a part that goes on the arm and then like a piece of foam that goes over the chest. and it clasps in the back. So it's like half floaties, half life vest. So she's got one of those. It's got a penguin on the front, so she loves it because she's a little swimming penguin, she says. So she's there in the pool, and she's yelling at me, "Daddy, float on your back." And then I'll float on my back, and then she'll grab my feet, and she's like, "You have to lift up your feet. Don't let your feet sink." And she's like this, and she'll hold up my feet. And so like there's like a grown man that looks like this with a baby teaching him how to swim. So that's kind of like what we look like in the pool. And so she's always trying to give me tips. Speaking of the pool though, yesterday we were at the pool, and this pool, it's a community pool, and it's got a diving board. It's got a drop slide. So you go up these stairs, and then it's kind of like a water slide, but just goes straight down. So it kind of like drops you from like 15 feet up maybe. And then there's like a big like spinny slide too. I'm going up to the drop slide with my daughter. We were not going together, but we were both going to get on it. And as I'm getting up to it, this kid who's maybe like 12, 13 years old, he leans over to me as I'm coming up, and he goes, "Hey, that's a nice mustache." And he does this with his fingers, like petting his own, like on his face, not on my face, but on his face, like the mustache area. And I was just like, thanks, I guess. And sometimes I just forget how like weird I must look in any situation, but especially probably around here too, looking like this these days. But I just felt like, I don't know. I feel like I felt a little bit self-conscious yesterday. I felt like yesterday was a day where like lots of the kids were like giggling and like, "Who's that guy over there who doesn't apparently know how to back float and has a creepy dude mustache at the pool?" So, so that's what was going on for me yesterday. All right. Remy B. Real says, "How do you deal with rendering errors? Does it still happen to you all the time? Super frustrating with the videos corrupted after 2 hours of rendering." Yeah, it doesn't happen to me as much when I use Final Cut. So that's been a plus for me. It used to happen a lot more in Premiere Pro. So I don't know if that's what you're using, Remy. But there's, one thing that happens to me frequently on Final Cut is if I use like warp stabilization, what's called in Premiere, but in Final Cut it's just called stabilization. If I use that on a couple of different clips, I could see in like the progress bars that it's all done, and then it's done like the warp stabilization or the wobble stabilization on some of my clips, and I'll go to render the video, and it'll tell me like, "Hey, there's still some parts that haven't been like stabilized yet. Do you want to continue?" If you do that if you do something like that in Premiere, it creates like a weird screen that's like that it clearly looks like there is an error. And in Final Cut, if you do the same thing, I think it'll render it, but without stabilization applied. But something's happened to my Final Cut. I don't know if it's just my laptop's old and there's just gremlins in the computer now. But now even if I say like, "Don't worry about it, just render the thing anyway," it'll render like a bunch of the way through, and then afterwards it'll just fail, which is super annoying. So what I do now is every time that warning comes up, I go through and I unclick stabilization, and then I reapply it. So I have to unapply and then reapply it to every clip that had it on there, and that just takes a while. So that's super annoying. So like that's something that happened to me from time to time, and yeah, it sucks. I think it happens to a lot. I still think it happens to a lot of people. I've been having, knock on wood, some good luck with not having anything too bad like that on it. But it's another thing that I love about, I'm not telling you to go out and buy all new computers and stuff, but it's one thing I like about editing in Final Cut and rendering on a Mac is that the rendering time seems to be pretty quick, even on, like I'm using a MacBook, not a MacBook Air, but not a MacBook Pro either. I'm using a MacBook, and it works pretty relatively quickly. All right. John James says, "Hey, bud, you know anything about the Puma Electrify Nitro, the new $100 shoe from Puma?" I'm not familiar with the Electrify. I feel like Puma just released like 3 new shoes or so. The Magnify, now this Electrify. I don't really know what a lot of them are. I'm not familiar with them. Mike Sardi says, "What's a good low stack height, firm, lightweight running shoe?" I'd say the Beacon 3 is a good low stack height, relatively low stack height, firm, lightweight running shoe. SL20 is another one. The Adios 5 would be even lower stack height, and even firmer, and I think an even more lightweight shoe. So those could be some options for you. The Under Armour Flow Velocity Wind is also, I think, in that category. It's not super lightweight, but it's has that like low to the ground, firm sensation to it. Evan Blankenship says, would love a how-to in editing and file management for a new YouTuber. Yeah, I've done some like editing videos in the past. Like last year I did one, like my entire workflow from like 360 camera to final video. It was like an hour long. It takes a long time. But I think that, what I would look at, Evan, though, is there's a lot of people that do a lot of good video tutorials. And I would look to those people that are specializing in YouTube on video tutorials. Like that's how I learned how to edit video. And so that's kind of what I would recommend too. And for file management, I mean, they say like 3, 2, 1, have 3 copies in 2 places. And I don't remember what the 1 is, but I'm not always good at that. For me, file management is a matter of juggling lots of different external hard drives. I, as a matter of practice, keep all my footage, except I don't keep my raw 360 files, and I don't keep my talking head portions of my videos. That just takes so much space. So like once I've edited the video, the talking head portion, I delete that, but all like the running footage, the B-roll, I keep that. Brendan says, I've been having some weird Premiere Pro issues since the 2021 update. Had an issue where it randomly wouldn't open. Had to reinstall 11 times. Really? Brendan, so what made you think after the 10th time of reinstalling, you know what? If we do it one more time, this is probably going to get it. And then you were like, I was so right. Like, you gotta walk me through that a little bit. I don't understand that. That's crazy. That's super crazy. Yeah, Brendan says, the YouTube tutorials is also how I learned to edit video. Super useful stuff out there. I mean, I don't think there's anything that I don't learn from YouTube anymore these days. Even if there's something that I'm learning somewhere else, I'm filling in a lot more with YouTube stuff. And what I generally find is better is like, don't try and look for something that's like how to edit videos for YouTube, a 17-part series. Like that, I think that's kind of like the wrong, I mean, maybe some people learn really well that way. I feel like that's a good way to be very thorough, but my approach would be start shooting videos, start editing videos. When you run into something where like, I wonder how you do this, or there's gotta be an easier way to do this. This is taking way too long. Type it into a YouTube search bar and then see if someone's made a video on exactly that. Most likely someone has. So that's kind of how I learn stuff. All right, so Brendan says about installing 11 times. He says, fortunately, I found a forum post of someone having the same issue, and they promised that reinstalling over and over would fix it, and they were right. That just doesn't seem right. That seems so fake. But I can't believe that it worked. That's amazing. Rob says, I learned editing the old school way before YouTube. I learned on Avid Symphony. Oh, yeah. That's a long time ago. I remember I met someone I used to not work with, but he was someone else in the same field as me. And he told me that like he learned on physical tapes. And I was like, what do you mean? And he would always do like, I learned on physical tapes. And he would always do this. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're doing. It looks dirty, but he's like, yeah, editing video was really different before computers. And I'm like, I don't even want to know. So some people go way back, I guess. Oh yeah, Rob did the same thing. When I first started a video, he says, I had hands-on video and made actual cuts into videotape. Rob, you probably know what this means then. I don't know. Maybe you don't. Maybe he was just doing some sort of weird hand thing. Yeah, and Bram Van Diemen says, I learned it by doing, though I'm still a novice by most standards. Yeah, I think that's just the way to do it. Get in there and figure out how to do stuff. And then when you don't know, Google it, YouTube search it, figure it out. Maybe you won't. And if you can't, then figure out a workaround, Yeah, Brendan said, I also work as a software engineer, so I may or may not do the same thing at work when things go weird. Oh, that's funny. You know what's funny is when I love it when people have stories of like, so I called like technical support on something, and they were like, try turning the computer off and turning it back on. And they were like, because that was such a, like, and they talk about it like it's a dumb idea. And then I'll follow up and I'll say, wait, did that work? And they'll be like, yeah, it did. So I think it's funny how like something that shouldn't work that way works that way. I mean, to me, it makes sense why turning something off and on would work, but for a variety of different reasons. But it's funny how like it's a machine. It shouldn't behave that way, but it does. It does. Remy says he's doing it is the best way to learn, and he's making mistakes as he goes. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. I mean, especially in this space, in like a YouTube space, it's like, you made a mistake. All right, so what? I have a lot of videos from my earlier days where I didn't fully render the warp stabilization on a sequence that I had edited in Premiere. And when it gets to that portion, it just says it's like a red screen with sequence not rendered or something like that on it for like 12 seconds. You'll hear audio, but you won't see video. And then you'll see the rest of the footage. I think it used to, I don't know if they fixed that in subsequent versions because I don't see even people new to YouTube making that same mistake anymore. But for a while, I saw it in my videos. I saw it in a couple of early Jamie videos. I don't think I ever saw it in any Seth videos, but I'm trying to think back from people who were making videos like 5 years ago. Yeah, it used to be a thing. And Cole Thomas says, well said. Watching one course will get you the basics, but watching multiple videos from different sources / people will take you a lot further. I think so too. I think there's also something to be said for the pressure and the relevance of like, I have this problem right now and I need to figure out a way to fix it. That helps you remember better and retain things better. So Terry Furlong says, about Brendan reinstalling 11 times. He says, Brendan has the patience of a saint. I would have freaked out at try 3. I think that's where I would have given up too. And even if at 3 tries, someone was like, you got to keep reinstalling it over and over until it works. After like the 6th or 7th try, I'd be like, this isn't working. All right. Sorry, I'm falling far behind. But Peach Tori, I want to get to this one, said, updates on the Peg 38. I mean, I'm getting to the point where I feel like I should just go to a store and pick up a pair. But I'm also like, I'm not super excited about it. So I'm not in a rush to review the Peg 38 or do my follow-up testing on it. The last I've gotten 3 emails in the last month about how my shipping dates keep slipping from Roadrunner Sports. And so I think was it Remy? Someone was saying last time that they think that my pair of shoes was on the Ever Given in the Suez Canal. And so like they're still figuring out a way to ship all that product that was on that ship. So maybe that's where it is, but I just I'm patiently waiting for it. And, if I don't get to it till later, I guess kind of that's where I'm at. Cause I just have so many other shoes and projects that I want to work on in a great way. So I'm not like, I could really use some new shoes here. So unfortunately that means that my follow-up will be delayed. All right. Remy says, the Adobe CC subscription is killing me. I might look at other options, but already paid for the year. Here's why I switched. I had it for work, and we were at the point where I was ready to switch to probably like DaVinci or something else because of the subscription model. Not because I don't like the subscription model. I felt like I don't mind a subscription generally because I like having the latest updates. Like if there's a new tweak and a feature, I don't want to have to think like, is it worth it for me to upgrade for these 4 things or not? Like, Maybe that's a more financially prudent way to go about it, but I just liked having, if they made an update, I got it. I like that, and I like fast, non-scheduled updates. Just give me the update when it's there. And then, but the thing that got me was I was trying to work on some work projects and also some YouTube projects on an airplane, and it wouldn't let me in. I don't know if they've changed that or fixed that or what, but it wouldn't let me in because when you open up the app, it pings to Creative Cloud and the servers to make sure you still have an active subscription before it lets you into the software. And it wouldn't let me do it. So I had this like 4-hour flight where I was like, I'm gonna get so much work done. It's gonna be great. When I land, I'm just like, boom, all these things are done. I can relax and, you know, get to where I need to be and hit the ground running. Instead, I mean, I did take a nice long nap, but I was just so mad about it. And then I had another 4-hour flight on the way home, and I was like, this is super annoying. That was like the final straw for me. And I was like, well, it wasn't the final straw because I ended up never making that switch. But that's the point that I was at when I was like, this is starting to drive me nuts. All right. Spence says, LOL, I had to call Enterprise Help Desk today. They make you reboot the computer while on the phone as a step in troubleshooting. Frustrating is generally the last thing I do before calling. Yeah, but you know what? I feel like I understand it, and I try not to get mad when they're like, did you check to make sure all the connections are secure? And like, did you make sure that your power strip isn't off? Like those kinds of questions. I'm like, there's a reason why they're asking those 15 questions at the beginning, because they probably solve a majority of the problems. And most of the people that are calling probably don't realize that those are good things to check before you call in. So like I let it go. I try to make sure, or I'll say like, hey, I'm having this problem. I tried checking all the connections. I tried checking all the power. I've rebooted. Nothing seems to help. Just to kind of like fast forward through what I anticipate will be the first 3 lines of questions, you know. I do think it's funny that it's like it's become scripted. Try turning it off and on. I mean, I feel like if I worked, I for a short time I was a temp and I worked on a help desk for a little while. But like, you know, I think if that were like my regular everyday job, like permanently, I just think I'd be really tempted to be like, all right, take the cartridge out, blow on it, and then put it back in, and then turn it back on. I think I'd be really tempted to just slide that into the script every time, just as a way of like, you know, hopefully keeping it light, you know, because it could be stressful for a lot of people. All right. All right, my chat thing just jumped again, so I'm falling behind. I'll try to catch up to you guys. PG's here. Says, hi, Kaposi, just arrived at the party. How's it going, everyone? Good to see you, PG. Welcome. And also coming in late, but glad to see us is Ray Solers, happy jogger. His 10K weekend report, 59.55, and made the goal, and they tossed in a great breakfast burrito. Oh, that's a double win for you there. Great job, Ray. Thanks for the follow-up. Awesome. Great job. All right. Yeah, Thomas Villa says, I work with daily, and a majority of the time, reboots and confining the device has power, and confirming the device has power fixes most of the calls. See, yeah, that's what I think. I think that's why they asked that, because if it didn't fix a lot of the problems, they wouldn't ask it. That's what I think. All right. And Bert says, my research domain is cloud-based software as a service with pay-per-use subscription model. Sorry. I don't have a problem. I think it's funny, but Bert, I don't have a problem with subscriptions. The problem that I have with the Adobe subscription is that as a paid member, I was unable to use it in a very critical use case scenario, which was on an airplane for me. So that was like the main thing. But overall, I generally am pro subscription. I get a little bit, I do sigh a little bit whenever I hear that something is switching to a subscription model, but like for software, for stuff that I'm using that's, you know, pretty important to me, like stuff like Final Cut or Premiere, Yeah, I'll put me on a subscription. I'll take it. I'm okay with that. All right, let's scroll up here a little bit. There was something that I wanted to see earlier from Cole. Here it is. Cole Thomas says he also learned from watching YouTube and now has a full-time job filming and editing for Milliken Fishing here on YouTube. Oh, super cool. See, it's so weird when you're like, when people are like, how'd you get that job? And it's like, well, I watched a lot of YouTube videos. People think you're joking, but I mean, I'm very pro or bullish on people using YouTube for very productive things, for sure. And he says, I spent more time watching Co's videos on shoes the last 2 months than editing, though. Well, okay. I'm imagining that filming and editing for Milliken Fishing may go in spurts. So maybe there are peaks and valleys. So hopefully it's in a valley, but it'll pick up again soon. But awesome, Cole. That's great. All right. Well, Leah says, for the subscriptions, it's business 101, recurring revenue. That's for sure. And I think that is a reason why a lot of companies are very tantalized by it. But CP76 reminds us that it's not necessarily a new business model, because you can get your NFL team jacket for Sports Illustrated subscription. I'm trying to think of when I had Sports Illustrated subscriptions, what did I get? I don't remember. I never got the football phone, which I always remember being a thing, because I think a lot of times when the football phone was being offered with a subscription, I was already a subscriber, so they didn't give you gifts for being a recurring subscriber. I don't ever think I got a jack. I don't know what I ever got. If I got anything for being a subscriber to Sports Illustrated in high school, I still don't have it, and it wasn't memorable. Yeah. Michelle Allen says, there's a very good UK sitcom called the IT Crowd, where the company's IT guy just puts, hello, IT, have you tried turning it off and on again on a tape instead of answering calls? Oh, that's funny. I mean, I could see that being like when you call a place now and they're like, you've reached such and such a business, our hours are whatever, and if you'd like to talk to someone, press 1. You know, I could see that being, I could see that being a thing for sure. But I also love the idea that someone's doing that for work. All right. Pete G says, can anyone recommend a good hydration vest? My favorite is the Camelback Zephyr. I like that one. I like it with, that one I believe comes with the bladder and bottles, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I bought that bladder separately. I don't remember. But that one I like. It's light. It fits me. Doesn't bounce around too much. The other one that I like is the Nathan Vapor Craw. I like that one too. I never tried that one with a bladder. Maybe I should try that. I still have it. Maybe I should try that. But I think that I think I bought a size too big, or I changed size from the time I bought it till now. So it seems kind of big every time I put it on now. But it fits me perfect when I wear it in the winter, because then I've got a bunch of layers on. So those are some two good ones that I like. But I know a lot of people have a lot of good experiences with a variety of them. Sean Devlin says, LOL about the football phone. You didn't miss anything if he remembers correctly. We had it and it was trash. Uncomfortable to use, I think. Oh, that's so funny. Oh, man. Andrew Bostic wants to know, hi, Kofuzi, do you think it makes sense to train in the racing complement of a training shoe? Like if I train in the Tempo, I race in the Alpha Fly, or if I train in the Zoom Fly, I race in the Vapor Fly. I think there is like on paper it makes a lot of sense, but I don't think it's necessary in practice. So I think that find the race shoe that you like, and then find the trainer that you like, or the racing companion or the training companion that you like, and it's going to be fine. It doesn't have to be the same brand, you know, like, because I feel like people can train in like the Fuel Cell TC. I love that shoe. I seem to like it the longer I have it. or like train in like a Carbon X2 or something, and then race in the Metaspeed Sky or Adios Pro 2 or Alphafly. I think that's I don't think there's any problem with that, with going either way. But if you want to pair them up that way too, and I think that can work as well. Teddy Jordan says he's been doing some testing in his shoe collection this month and realized that his carbon-plated shoes, Zoom Fly 3 and the Endorphin Pro, thrust me faster by 15 seconds at least per kilometer. Per kilometer. That's, I mean, but are you giving the same effort? Or is it just like the average paces that you're running? Like you break out the carbon-plated shoes for your fast workouts and your other shoes are easy days? Or are you talking about like trying to run like the same fartlek workout in a variety of shoes? 15 seconds per kilometer is a lot. That's a lot. That's amazing. That's amazing though. All right, let's do one more. Jack Cullen says, big man, out of 100, rate the Noblast 2. I don't know. I don't really like to do numbers because I feel like numbers import I don't want to say inaccurate, but they put more objectivity to a subjective rating than I think is warranted. So like, I don't like to give scores out of like 4 out of 5. I did it when Ed Bud asked me to. What were we talking about? Were we talking about the Noblast or were we talking about the Ultra Boost? Because he likes to do scores, so I give things scores, but I don't like to give numbers. But I mean, if you really want me to rate it out of 100, I'm assuming 1 being the worst and 100 being the best, without context of what I'm using it for, I would say a 93. So we'll keep it vague as terms of like how I'm rating it, but I'll say 93. It's a really good shoe. It's one of the best shoes of the year. But depending on what you need, you know, I wouldn't want to race in it. So that's just the other thing to kind of keep in mind. Yeah, business says 93, great number. I mean, it's somewhat arbitrary, but you know, if like in the US, like a 93 and up is an A, so I give it an A. You know, it's not an, I mean, is it an A plus? I don't know. I can't race in it. So, I mean, I guess I could, but I wouldn't want to race in it. So I'm not going to give it a 100. If there was some sort of magic shoe that I could use for recovery runs, racing, daily training, and it felt perfect at all those, then I guess that'd be a magical, mythical 100. I don't know. All right. Hey, Mitchell says, finally caught my first live stream. Well, welcome, Mitchell. Glad to have you here. But we are pretty much at it for today. Yeah, that's what Mike says. That's all for today. We are at the end. I think I got to get going. The kids have been quiet. We got some cousins over now too, and they were rowdy before live stream started, and now it's really quiet. So I'm getting a little bit nervous, but you know, Grandpa's down there, so I think we'll be okay. All right, let's do one more. Chris Dyke says, hey, coach, just lurking while I eat. Closest comparison to the TC. I don't know. The TC is really soft and squishy. So it reminds me a lot in a good way of the Zoom Fly Flyknit 2 because it's got a thick stack height and it's nice and squishy. That's probably the shoe that I would compare it closest to. But I think I like the Fuel Cell TC more than the Zoom Fly 2. The Zoom Fly 2 is more like aggressive. The TC is a little bit more subtle and nuanced, but I think overall I like it more. So there we go. I'll think about that some more though, because that is a shoe that I do like. And I don't think we're getting it back. I don't think there's going to be a TC 2. I think the RC Elite and the TC are merging into the RC Elite 2. That's my sense. So we'll leave it there for today, but yeah, so that's what I think. All right, guys, tomorrow's video, I'm going to go over last week of training. I don't usually do like the weekly recap because you guys see every day of training, but since I'm training for like lots of different things at the same time, I thought I'd kind of go over how I'm trying to divvy up my time and energy. So that's tomorrow's video. And then we'll do another live stream tomorrow, same time as today, 1 p.m. Central Time, and we'll have a Trivia Tuesday. I haven't figured out what that trivia is going to be yet, but I'll figure out something. It won't be about pancakes, though. I can promise you that. but I'll think of something else. All right, guys. Hopefully I'll see you again tomorrow. And in the meantime, be safe out there, everybody.